Al-Rabb, the Lord. When his Lord said to him, "Submit," he said, "I have submitted to the Lord of the worlds." If you were to pick up a copy of the Quran, the first thing you would encounter is the opening chapter, Surah Al-Fatiha. This chapter contains 7 short verses, and they introduce us to the whole of the Quran and to God Himself. The attributes of God mentioned in Surah Al-Fatiha are even more significant because Muslims recite this chapter in every unit of every prayer. Indeed, the ritual prayer, as-salah, is not valid without reciting it. Therefore, every Muslim who prays the ritual prayer must have memorized these verses. They may only know 2 or 3 other short chapters of the Quran by heart, but this chapter is essential. Hence, most will know God by the attributes mentioned in this chapter specifically, even if they do not know anything else. This is also true for someone who does not know anything about Islam, and the first thing they encounter is the opening chapter of the Quran. We are told, "All praise is due to Allah." If you are unfamiliar with Islam or the Quran and are reading it for the first time, you may ask, who is Allah that is owed this praise? Rabb of all the worlds. Here we are introduced to the first foundation for our relationship with God. He is the Rabb. And what does this word mean? Some of the names of God are encompassing names, signifying that the name encompasses many meanings. Al-Rabb is one of these names, as linguistically it means the master, the owner, the one who arranges all matter, the nurturer, the sustainer, the one who is worshipped, the one who reforms his servants and their affairs, and the one who bestows favors and blessings. So, God is the owner who maintains the existence of and cares for the world that He owns and all those in it, ensures its growth, gives gifts to all those who inhabit it, and has full authority over it. The relationship is important to define because there are many theories about God's relationship with us. There are those who believe that God is the creator, but beyond that, we have no other relationship with Him. There's a modern belief that God, or an overseeing deity, exists and helps us along our path to achieve worldly happiness, but without us being responsible to Him or following His instructions for our lives, especially not those that conflict with our base desires or ego. In the Quran, we are told that Allah is the Rabb, and as our Lord, we are responsible to Him and should obey Him. According to Ibn al-Qayyim, the absolute highest level of love is Ubudiyya, which loosely translates as servitude, as it turns one into a slave or abd to the beloved, to Allah. When the Prophet was given the choice of being a prophet who was a king or a prophet who was a slave, he chose the latter, Ahmad. And the reason he did so is that he understood intimately the honor of being a servant of God, the Rabb, and wanted to humble himself before his Lord. Indeed, choosing this name meant that he could have the honorable title of being Abdullah, literally the servant or slave of God. Submitting to and obeying someone other than ourselves appears to go against much of what the modern world teaches us. There is an emphasis on making our own rules, as well as a disdain for authority. But human authority is not the same as divine authority. It is flawed and tainted by self-interest. Despite this, God gives us a choice. We may choose not to obey Him. In the Quran, we are told, so whoever wills, let him believe, and whoever wills, let him disbelieve. At the end of the day, we will all return to Him and are subject to His will. God says in the Quran, then He directed Himself to the heaven while it was smoke and said to it and to the earth, come willingly or by compulsion. They said, we have come willingly. The heavens and the earth understood this relationship. Obedience becomes natural once we know who the Rabb is. It only becomes burdensome and something to be resisted when we do not understand the nature of our Rabb, because this word contains elements of care and nurturing. The commands of our Rabb contain the ultimate benefit for us and help us on our journey towards Him. Turning to your Rabb. The context of what this name is cited in the Quran tells us more about this relationship. The first mention of this name is found in the initial verses revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. Recite in the name of your Rabb who created. Allah's name, Al-Rabb, was the attribute first revealed to the Prophet to know his Lord. At that point, the Prophet Muhammad had been searching. He was 40 years old and had been through much, having been orphaned at a young age. His father had died while his mother was still pregnant with him. His mother then passed away in front of him when he was just 6 years of age. His grandfather, who had taken care of him after his mother passed, died when he was 8 years old. He then moved to his uncle's house with 10 other children and lived with very little means. He worked as a shepherd, witnessed war and peace, and eventually worked in trade. He then married his wife Khadija when he was 25 years old and had 6 children, 4 girls and 2 boys who had died in infancy. His was not an easy life, and he witnessed the societal injustices that occurred around him. So, when Allah revealed His words to him, He told the Prophet that he was his Rabb, your Rabb, Rabbuka. And this was reassuring to the Prophet. There was a Rabb who, despite the Prophet's difficulties, was always there. There was a Rabb who, despite injustices that occur, was in control of everything. There was a Rabb who, despite his feeling at times alone and abandoned, had been nurturing him throughout. And because there was a Rabb of the whole universe and beyond, there was a better way to live in the rules that He has prescribed. A more contemporary example can be seen in Malcolm X. Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, may God rest his soul, as he described certain events in his life in his autobiography. And out from where they had been concealed walked 2 other detectives. They'd had me covered. One false move, I'd have been dead. If I hadn't been arrested right when I was, I could have been dead another way. Sophia's husband's friend had told her husband about me, and her husband has arrived that morning and had gone to the apartment with a gun looking for me. He was at the apartment just about when they took me to the precinct. I've thought 1,000 times, I guess, about how I so narrowly escaped death twice that day. That's why I believe that everything is written. God was taking care of him. When we finally internalize and understand that God is the Rabb, we know exactly to whom to turn in difficult moments. All of the prophets called upon God as my Lord, Rabbi, when faced with adversity and need. For example, Moses said, "My Lord, indeed I do not possess except myself and my brother. So, part us from the defiantly disobedient people." And mention Zechariah, when he called to his Lord, "My Lord, do not leave me alone with no heir, while you are the best of inheritors." Noah said, "My Lord, support me because they have denied me." All the above examples give us glimpses into how Allah manifests His lordship, Rububiyyah. He is the one who nurtures the orphan, the one to whom we turn because of His power and control over the whole universe, and the one who sustains this world. What does this mean for you? Al-Rabb is your Rabb too, who has nurtured you, taught you in ease and hardship, and is the one to whom you can turn in any situation. There is nothing outside of His power, and nothing happens without His permission. While others may act as though they are lords, they too are subject to the only true Lord. So, turn to Him and trust Him, and reflect back on your life to see how your Rabb was always there with you and for you. In the example of Moses, he made a supplication to God. Allah answered his supplication and then reminded him of how He was there for him even before Moses knew how to ask. And we had already conferred favor upon you another time, when we inspired to your mother what we inspired, saying, "Cast him into the chest, and cast it into the river, and the river will throw it onto the bank. There will take him an enemy of me and an enemy of him. And I bestowed upon you love from me, that you would be brought up under my eye, and we favored you. When your sister went and said, 'Shall I direct you to someone who will be responsible for him?' So we restored you to your mother that she might be content and not grieve. And you killed someone, but we saved you from retaliation and tried you with a severe trial. And you remained some years among the people of Midian. And then you came here at the decreed time, Moses, and I produced you for myself. Go, you and your brother, with my signs, and do not slacken in my remembrance. Go, both of you, to Pharaoh. Indeed, he has transgressed, and speak to him with gentle speech, that perhaps he may be reminded or fear Allah." All those times when the world seemed unfair and did not make sense were a preparation for what was to come. Everything in your life too that seems to be out of control is in the hands of the Lord. Indeed, God is the Lord of everyone, but He has a special relationship with those who seek Him and try to earn His pleasure in His care for them. Lord of the worlds, the nations, and those who think. Throughout this book, one thing that must be remembered is that even if words are shared by the Creator and creation and may help us in understanding the attributes of God, they are not the same in meaning. The word Rabb, like in English, Lord or Master, can be used for a human being. The difference is, when used for a person, there must be an addiction. For example, the phrase Rabbul Bayt is often used in Arabic and means the Lord or Master of the house or home. But Allah is the only one who is Al-Rabb, the complete Rabb. In the context of Surah Al-Fatiha, we are additionally told that He is Rabb al-Alameen, translated as the Lord of the worlds, which is also a title that is reserved for Him. The word Al-Alamin, worlds, also encompasses many meanings. At a very general and basic level, it encompasses all of creation, including humans, jinn, angels, animals, and other entities, each of which may be referred to as a world. One says the world of angels, the animal world, the human world, or the world of the jinn. This extends to everything, big and small, even bacteria and cells are their own worlds. Most of the time, we do not even realize the greatness of Allah's creation, making us ignorant of Allah's power over all creation. Sheikh al-Sha'rawi, moreover, stated that the word Al-Alamin refers to the thinking worlds. The emphasis on thinking means that we must use our minds in order to reach Him. Moreover, since God is the Lord of the thinking worlds, then naturally He is also the Lord of the unthinking, meaning the inanimate. Finally, the word Al-Alamin also means that He is the Lord of the peoples, meaning that He is the Lord of all of the different nations, tribes, and peoples. No matter our language, our skin color, or our culture, He is the Rabb of all of us. He is what unites us. In fact, He created us in this way. Submission to Him does not require us to all be the same, but rather to submit to Him in all of our diversity. Most religious traditions have this basic understanding of God, the Master, Lord, and Nurturer. Since this word encompasses different meanings, what is the distinguishing feature of this Rabb? What would immediately come to mind when thinking of the word Rabb or Master is authority. But Surah Al-Fatiha immediately clarifies what kind of Rabb He is, as the following verse states, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful. Elsewhere in the Quran we are told, and peace, a word from the merciful Lord. When you think of the name Al-Rabb, you are not meant to think of the relationship as purely one of authority, even though that is a part of the meaning. Rather, this is equally a relationship with a loving and merciful Rabb. The next chapter will explore these names of Allah. Living with this name, worship your Rabb. God says in the Quran, indeed, Allah is my Lord and your Lord, so worship Him. That is the straight path. And worship your Lord until there comes to you the certainty, death. Knowing that Allah is our Rabb is to worship Him wholeheartedly, and that worship has a sweetness, especially when we know whom we are worshipping. Thus, part of worshipping Allah by His name is to learn what He has commanded of us so that we can best obey Him. Look back at your life and see how He has been taking care of you all along. Just like the Prophet Muhammad, the Prophet Moses, Malcolm X, and many more, look back at your life and see how Allah has been taking care of you. Talk to Him and thank Him for being there for you, with you. Remember that in every hardship there is a lesson from a merciful Lord. Call upon Him like the prophets. All the prophets were close to God and called upon Him with Rabbi, my Lord. Many supplications from the Prophet ﷺ also called upon Him with Rabbi. He is also your Lord, so call upon Him with all of your heart. Rabbi,